Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose, the #1 health and wellness podcast in the world. Thanks to each and every one of you that come back every week to listen, learn, and grow. I'm so grateful for our incredible community here. The incredible response we've received to the episodes of late has just been unbelievable, whether it's you sharing your greatest lesson on Instagram or some of you making videos about episodes on TikTok or sharing a tweet. It really means the world to me to see how many things you're changing about your mindset and your lifestyle in order to live healthier, more healed, happier lives. And today I'm speaking to a guest who I've interviewed very briefly before. I was doing a Facebook audio room called Safe Space, and this was during the pandemic, and I got to connect with this guest. And since that day, I have not stopped thinking about or quoting this conversation to people. So when people will say to me like, oh, who's the most interesting person you've interviewed recently? This person's name comes up a million times in conversation. And I'll talk about her creative process and how she gets into character. And I've rarely had that feeling where I think someone's words stay with me for that long. I'm always blown away by my guests, but for things to stay with me repetitively. And then we've kept in touch. We've had a few messages back and forth, but today finally got to meet her. I'm speaking about the one and only Cynthia Erivo, Grammy, Emmy, and Tony Award-winning actress, singer, and producer, as well as an Academy Award, Golden Globe, and SAG nominee. Cynthia burst onto the West End and Broadway stages in The Color Purple and has since taken the world by storm. Cynthia was recently nominated for a SAG and Emmy Award for her critically acclaimed portrayal of Aretha Franklin in National Geographic's Emmy-winning global anthology series, Genius, Aretha. If you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. Cynthia will hit the screen in early September with Disney's live-action retelling of Pinocchio, my favorite story growing up. I can't wait. And Cynthia will take on the iconic role of the Blue Fairy. How cool. Cynthia was the lead in the HBO series The Outsider, and Cynthia starred in Harriet, where she brought the legacy of Harriet Tubman to the big screen. I actually don't know anyone who's played this many iconic people in their lifetime. You usually just get one go, and Cynthia's just taken them all up. Cynthia lent her voice to the movie's title song, Stand Up, which he co-wrote Stand Up, won Best Original Song at the Hollywood Music in Media Awards, and both Cynthia and Stand Up were nominated for 2 Academy Awards, as well as 2 Golden Globe Awards in the categories of Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Drama, and Best Original Song. Stand Up also received a nomination for a Grammy Award in the category of Best Song Written for Visual Media. Please welcome to the show, Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia, it is awesome.
Good to see you.
It's finally good to see you. I know. And even the first few moments we've had.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about hearing a British accent in LA.
I know, it's like it brings you home, doesn't it?
Oh, it's just,
nice.
I feel so like embraced.
Yeah.
I just heard your voice come up the hill when you were coming up, and I was like,
that sounds familiar.
I feel like I'm growing up, like I've just gone back to being a teenager.
Yeah.
Do I make you feel that way?
Yeah,
Because
like whenever I hear, because, you know, for all intents and purposes, this is home. But whenever I hear an accent that sounds like where I'm from, it makes it even more home. It's like, oh, I really recognize that. I feel like, it's a warm hug.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Do I still have it though? That's my question.
You do.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
I always
definitely
get worried. I feel like you're probably bringing out more of me. I always feel like I'm quite the chameleon sometimes with my wife always makes fun of me because she's like, every time we talk to one of our family in India, you just put on an Indian accent. And I do it really unknowingly. I do it as like
but I think we each have, depending on where we're from, we have like traces of what that is. So I know that when I'm talking to my Nigerian friends, we've been listening to that accent since we were kids. So it's not that we don't have the accent. It's sort of like embedded on our brains, so it just comes out when we're together. It's sort of like the comfortability of it comes out. So I think it's the same as when we're around other English people, the comfortability of speaking with an English accent sort of comes to life. There are times when I have to sort of like shift certain words. Whenever I'm speaking to other American people, there are words that get sort of misunderstood. So I might say one thing and they'll be like, what does that mean? So I'll find the American version of that word and repeat it. And there are times when I've had to change the accent to make sure that we're both understanding. We get lost in translation. So I totally understand why it might be stronger when you're speaking to me, because now you don't have to make it any milder, because you know that I'll understand everything you say.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was this, I remember when he first moved here and my wife would be at the grocery store and she'd be like, can I get a tin of beans, please? And I'm like, what's a tin? It's a can, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
And she was like, where's the tin of this and tin of that? And then there was the one that I started changing my language from being pounds to dollars. And so when I'd be in a video or an interview, I'd be saying dollars. And then all my Brit friends in the comment section would be like, oh, we see where you are now. Like, you left us behind. So what was you were Stockwell, right?
Yes, I was.
I'm North London. So I grew up in like Wood Green, Tottenham area. Like that was where I grew up. What's something that we kind of moved to the States around the same time, we just found out. What's something that you miss about London, but you love about LA?
I love the sunshine in LA. I love that it's so bright a lot of the time, and it's warm a lot of the time. But there is something really wonderful about the way the weather changes in London, in the UK, the way you get the seasons. Obviously, I miss family. I don't get to see them as often as I would do if I was there. And like, silly things like biscuits, because biscuits here are very different to biscuits there.
Which ones were your favorite biscuits? Taking me back now.
Digestives.
Oh yeah. McVitie's.
McVitie's digestives, or like Hobnobs.
Oh yeah, Hobnobs. I used to love rich tea.
Yeah, so good. Like, the round ones or the pencil, the ones kind of the oblong one.
Yeah, or whatever that shape.
Those ones are so good.
Yeah,
like little things like that, you just sort of like miss. Lay's also are not the same as Walkers.
Yes.
Walkers are really good. Lay's are good too, but all of Walker's packets are good. You have to find like the right, silly things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I love talking about it because it's same for me. It's interesting you said that. I think I often feel that sometimes when I'm back in England, I was like, oh, you live in Hollywood now and you live in LA. And I'm like, well, no, to me, I live in LA because the weather's incredible.
Yeah.
And I love waking up to a blue sky every day.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I can go on a hike.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah.
I can be in nature. I hike for about 2 miles every day around my home. And it's just, I love that. I never could have done that in London. I never did.
No.
And at the same time, I miss a lot of, I miss going to watch a football match because I love football. And so for me, being able to going to watch a game and like feeling the energy of the fans. It's special. There's like a special vibe around it. But what I like to do on purpose is I like to dive into people's journeys, people's stories, parts of them. We're not following a linear or, we're not trying to do a biographical piece, but I love diving into stuff. And I saw that you went to a Roman Catholic school growing up.
Yeah.
How is that influence now when you look back, who you are today, positive, things that were challenging? Like, how do you grapple with that today? What does it feel like?
Growing up and going to a Roman Catholic school.
It was a girls' school too.
All girls' school, yeah. It's strange because I never really felt like I totally fit in there. I believe in God, but that sort of upbringing felt really restrictive. It's so rules-based that you sort of miss the most important parts of what that faith is supposed to be about. And I've kind of let a lot of the Roman Catholic side of me go, just so that I could create space for me to form my own understanding of what my faith should encompass. Right now, I'm really clear on the fact that the most important part of my faith is to be as loving and kind to people, to the world around me, not just people, but I have 2 dogs, so I take care of them in the most loving way because I want that to come back to me. So I believe things are really cyclical. So if you give out something good, that good will come back. You might not see it immediately, but somehow it finds its way back to you. It's like a boomerang, And I think that is really the most important part of my faith. And I sort of encouraged myself to really take in what is around me so that I can appreciate the wonderful things that come. Mm-hmm. The fact that I can get up in the morning and go for a run and it's really sunny. And as I pass by, there are when I ran, there were 2 women who stopped and I saw them as they passed by, they smiled and I was like, that's lovely of them smiling. And I ran back and somehow managed to meet them again how, I don't know, I ran 3 miles. I, just did a quick 5K, but somehow on my way back, we met in exactly the same place. And they stopped and I stopped and they just were like, we were just really impressed. I don't know what are you running for? I was like, I'm running for the marathon. I was, oh, okay, great. And just those little interactions are really special because, well, we don't know how either one of us is going to influence our day. And to be able to stop and have that conversation with the person and smile at someone and, have something positive means that we've put something positive into each other. And I think that is really what it is about for me. And I understand that everyone has their own understanding of faith. But for me, Roman Catholicism sort of doesn't give us the space to embrace all of that.
It's always really interesting hearing someone's reflection in hindsight, because I don't know how it felt at that time, whether it felt the same way, but I went to an all-boys school. So I went to Queen Elizabeth's boys' school in Barnet. And I used to take like a 45-minute bus or to an hour bus sometimes just to get there every day. My parents had worked really hard for me to prepare for exams to get into this school, and it wasn't private, but it was a great education. And at the time, it's like all of us didn't want to go there because it was so strict. It was so like disciplined. But I found a few teachers there that kind of had this openness. And so I had my art teacher at the time, Mr. Buckeridge, who's still there, I believe, and we keep in touch now and again, but he just helped me think so differently. So in this space where there were like rules and discipline, there was a teacher who just kind of just knew how to navigate enough where you were in the rules, but not too much. And he helped me so much with my thought process and my mindset. And now when I look back, I'm really grateful that I have this really beautiful experience where I feel like I have equal parts discipline and equal parts artistry. And I really embrace those two sides. I was wondering with you, like
you're right. You're very right. Actually, you're really right about that. That there is that sort of like tandem of discipline and artistry. My favorite music teacher, actually my music teacher and a French teacher, for some reason sort of stuck to me, Miss Rycroft and Madame Chesley. They both just wanted me to blossom as a creative. Madame Chesley wouldn't let me get away without speaking some sort of French to her all the time. And now I love the language very much so. And Miss Rycroft made me learn every kind of instruments I could possibly put my hands on and sing everything I could possibly sing. But it also gave me the discipline of wanting to learn, wanting to be as good as I want to be at these particular subjects. And you're right in that there is a wonderful sort of melding of creativity and discipline that has definitely influenced how I live and how I've lived so far.
Yeah, I was thinking that with you because when you brought up running, you've got to be really disciplined. And when I see your stories or posts with you running, I'm like, I'm in anxiety. Like, I'm like, I am so glad. I was like, I'm becoming friends with Cynthia, I hope. But as long as she doesn't invite me on a run, we're good. Like, if she wants to do a hike, I could do that. But it's like it requires so much discipline, so much energy. And let's talk about running first, and then we'll move into your artistry. But when you look at how much you're running, you just said you run a half marathon.
Ran a half marathon over the weekend. And then every day is about 8 miles, except for today, which is supposed to be a break day. So I did 5K. And then on the weekend, it's 16 to 18.
And how do you find time for this in between roles and prep? And like, or is this something that continues on?
It just goes on.
That's incredible.
I do it I've been running since I was 20. My first marathon was 2016. I think I had one mini break in between. I remember I was in Atlanta and just decided, let me get back to it, and haven't stopped since then. It's an ongoing journey that teaches you about discipline, your stamina, how your mind works, how you psych yourself out sometimes, how you can buoy yourself and lift yourself up. And I gained so much from it. Believe me, there are days when I do not want to get outside or on a treadmill and do any of it. But that also is a moment for me to sort of learn. There are days when, yes, it's good to stop, take a second and not do the run today. But other days it's, how can I overcome this moment where I'm like truly not wanting to do it? And those days when I'm able to overcome those moments when I'm like, I do not want to do this, often are the days when the runs are the best, which is very strange.
Yeah.
But I love it. It has provided space to think. It's provided moments where I've made friends along the way. People are now used to seeing me do certain routes, so I always bump into people and I say hello, and it gives me a lot. The physical aspect is, yes, your body loves it. It's great to work out, but it's more a mental thing than anything else. Distance running really is more mental than physical, because once your physical is done, if you get to 18 past half marathon, it really is sort of like, okay, mind, how will you get past the rest of this?
Yeah.
And that's always a really wonderful sort of adventure.
Yeah. Have you felt that approach to anxiety and psyching yourself out, have you feel that become applied to life through that process of running? Like, could you give us an example of how that's
because honestly, it's those days are the step-by-step days. That's what I call them. You just take one step, then take the next step, then take the next and the next and the next, and you'll realize at some point you're running. That's essentially what happens with me with other things. This is a silly example. I had to redo my closet. Everything was taken out of it, and I've had to put it all back together again. And when I first looked at this task, it just looked mammoth. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this back in order again. And I looked at it and would go away and go, it's not going to get done. I can't do it. And then one day I just said, just start. Nothing else after that. Yeah. If you just start, something will get done. Even if it's like one small section, you will have started. Yeah. And the next day, just start again.
Yeah.
It's the same for if I'm learning a piece or a song that just won't stay. I'll just start. Learn the first line and just keep going over the first line. And sooner or later, the first line will be in there and you'll want to go into the next line. You do a piece or you're playing a character you just can't understand. Just read the lines. Find out what other people are saying, find out what the journey is. And then sooner or later, you'll want to get to know this character. Now, the way to get to know this character is probably to learn the character. And when you learn the character, well, you've learned the character. Now you know it. All these sort of little mountains or trials, they aren't always easy. But if you just start, you might be able to get over them.
Yeah.
Even when we're running hills, I never look at and sometimes you're told, look straight ahead. I always look at the bit in front of me. My eyes are never pointed upward when I'm walking up a hill. I'm always like, if I can just get my foot in front of this next foot, and if I could just keep going bit by bit by bit, sooner or later, when I look up, I'll be at the top of the hill. And that's always what's happened. And it's the one thing that keeps me from stopping in the middle of a hill. I just keep going one foot in the front of the other. My eyes are pointed downwards because I know that there's only one foot that the only thing that can happen is I'm going to put my foot in front of my foot again. And then eventually the hill sort of flattens out and you're like, oh, I got there. I made it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. It's good.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I love that perspective because I think you are right that we've kind of been trained in society to like look at the goal, look at the target, figure out the end point.
Yeah.
And you're so right that if you ever try and run or whatever you do, whether it's hiking or anything, swimming or whatever, if you're looking at the end constantly, you'll keep measuring how far you are away from
exactly.
it. I know that I don't run anywhere close to as much as you do, but when I have ever run before, when I have looked at the end, I'm just like,
how am I going to get
so far away? I'm still so far away. Okay, I'll get to that point and then I'll walk and then, whatever. And then you start negotiating with yourself. Rather than if you are just looking at it. It's the same when we were taught to meditate as monks. I lived as a monk for 3 years. And when we were trained in that practice, we always meditated on beads. And you get this beautiful set of beads. I still have them today. And there's 108 of them, which is a sacred number. And you're told to just focus on one bead at a time. And the mind is like, oh, I've got to get 108 beads and I've got to do this multiple times and whatever it is. And so we were told, no, just one bead at a time, one step at a time, and just start. I love that as a view of like, just start today and then you'll thank yourself later. You'll figure it out.
I can't tell you how many times people have asked, how do you even do that? How do you run so much? I want to start and I'm not sure what to do. And I'm never going to be able to run that distance. No one is asking you to run that distance. Just go outside and start.
Yeah.
That's it. Put on your sneakers. Even if you only make it to the door, that's more than you did yesterday.
Yes.
And then maybe you'll make it in front of the door tomorrow. And then maybe you'll make it just down your street. That is a run.
Yeah.
5 minutes of running is a run.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be half an hour, 2 hours, 2 minutes is a run.
Yeah.
Just start. Just a little bit is enough. And then you'll find more later. You'll find that... asking, your mind is asking, your body is asking for a little bit more. Because the 5 minutes that you did is now, well, I can do that.
Absolutely.
I'll do more then.
Absolutely. Were you always athletic? Like, was that always a part of your life growing up? Like,
yeah, I've always been athletic, whether it be dance or sport. I was a sprinter when I was younger. That's what I sort of wanted to do. And then my very first sort of distance run was a 5K, and it was for cancer research.